Alright, hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Megan and today I'm making my third wedding video. So my first was about my engagement, my second was about visiting the venues, and today I'm going to talk more about the venues and more so about the costs of the venues today. And I really want to go into how that affected our choices and overall just made an impact on our decision. So I'm going to go through the different venues that I talked about in my last video because those are the ones I visited. And I actually used my notebook here and I recorded all of the prices of the venues other than the beach, the Manhattan Beach Lodge. I don't have the price for that because I never contacted them further for that, but I do have the prices for all the other ones, and that is just going to go into the venue cost and an overall cost for the whole wedding. The way I came up with the overall cost is I went through each of the different categories that are important, including dress and DJ, hotel, shuttles, decorations, all those kinds of things, and I basically made a general list of those. Now I don't have those, so it was kind of an estimate. So yeah, when I talk about overall cost, it's really just an estimate in addition to the venue cost. So let's first start by talking about the budget. Obviously money is one of the most important things, so we're going to start by talking about that so you guys can kind of understand where I'm coming from when I'm talking about these different venues and kind of how they work into our overall wedding plan. Using my chosen wedding app and a basic Google search, I figured out that a typical wedding costs anywhere between $25,000 and $30,000. Now obviously $30,000 is on the way more expensive end, and $25,000 is still kind of expensive for a wedding as well, but that was what they said is a typical or average cost of a wedding. Now, while we do obviously want to try to save as much money as we can throughout this process, we will be getting some help from our parents, both on my side and my fiance's side, but a healthy chunk of the bill will also be funded by us, and so we really needed to take that into account as we were searching and picking out different venues. So I also decided to do another basic Google search, and I wanted to look up this time the price of a average venue cost. And so they said it could be anywhere between $11,000 and $16,000. So that kind of put it right in the middle of the budget a little bit. So that kind of helped put it into perspective. Obviously that can be really, really expensive, and we definitely found venues that did not cost that much in terms of just the venue cost. However, that does impact other costs like different vendors you'd have to get, different items for the reception or ceremony such as chairs. So even though a venue can be really cheap, there could be things that go on top of it that make it more expensive than ones that are more expensive but might come with those things. Alright, let's go ahead and start with Creekside Farm. So this was the venue with the big beautiful barn and chandeliers and everything like that. This was the one that also said that we had to be out by, or we could start decorating and doing everything at 8 a.m. and had to be cleaning up at 11 p.m. and out completely at midnight. So those are some of the things to say about that. This venue by itself was $7,900, and that was pretty pricey for the fact that they didn't include anything else. However, their overall cost was about $33,441 with that added estimate. Obviously that's a little bit over that Google search budget that I found, but it was still kind of reasonable and within our means for providing for a wedding. The next option was the Oakridge Hotel and Conference Center, and this one was a bit different because they actually offered packages, so that kind of changed my overall estimate price. And so it looks really large in terms of the venue cost because of that package deal. But that package did come with a DJ and cake cutting and had the food minimum and different things like that. So that was a really nice feature that I obviously wouldn't have to go out and find my own DJ and different things like that. But the venue with the package deal was about $11,990, and that did change my rough estimate of that $12,000. So this ended up actually being a total cost of about $28,000. So right in the middle there, obviously on the closer or higher end of that budget, but it was a nice option with that package deal. All right, next up was the St. James Hotel. It was this older hotel that was about a 30-minute drive. It included several nice spaces to choose from and had an older feel. This was the one with the floor-to-ceiling windows that was absolutely gorgeous and we loved. And this one was kind of nice because their restaurant was also their caterer. They did have a florist in their actual building, as well as a little gift shop and different things like that. So this venue ended up being a cost of $3,500, and that was for the reception and the ceremony spaces. And I think they also included a complimentary room for the bride and groom. And with that added estimate, this turned out to be about $27,500. Again, kind of towards that higher end, but getting to be a little bit more reasonable, especially considering how beautiful the different spaces were and just how much detail they put into making it a really special area and event place to get married at. So next up was the golf course, and this one was just the venue in itself. I know I talked about we really wanted a hotel, so obviously the hotel would be an added price onto what we would have to pay. So again, that changed the estimate just a little bit. And basically this one was just for the venue and they did not include catering or anything like that. So that made it a little bit different, but they were overall, for just the venue cost, extremely affordable. And that really piqued my interest because I was like, well, if we can save money there, we can spend a little bit extra somewhere else. But the venue cost itself was $2,500, and the overall cost was about $25,000. So right at that minimum of what a typical or average wedding costs. However, you do have a lot of extra work that you need to do that some of those more expensive venues already do for you and basically have included in that price. So that was something really big that we had to consider. Lastly, then we have Pine Peaks. Like I told you guys, I just didn't get the information for the Manhattan Beach Lodge because after we visited that, we basically already had our answer for which one we wanted to go with. So yeah, I just didn't end up getting the information for that one. But yeah, our final venue tour was Pine Peaks, and just to remind you guys of which one this was one that was about 3.5 hours away from where we and a lot of our family members live. They have a house on the property that we also, it's an additional cost, so that adds into the overall budget and cost of everything. But we get the whole place for 5 days. It's a private estate, and it has a few different perks that are added into the price. However, kind of like Creekside Farm, the venue cost is kind of just for the venue. You're still paying for the place that you're staying, you're still paying for food and drinks and photo booth and DJ and all those separate things. So that's kind of a hard part about this one. So anyways, this venue was a total of $12,850, and he actually brought that cost down, but with the a couple added things, I just added that into the overall venue cost. And then the overall cost was about $33,000. Now again, that's towards the higher end, just like Creekside Farm, but you know, if that's what works in your budget, then that's what makes sense for you. So yeah, but again, for this venue, we still do need to find our own, well, we don't need to find our own caterer because they use one, but we would need to find our own DJ and hairstylist and yada yada yada, all those extra things. So you can see that the costs came out to be quite different, some on the lower end, some on the higher end, and I honestly was just looking through my chosen wedding app called The Knot, and I was just trying to look for pretty pictures, and I figured I could worry about cost afterwards, and I think it really worked out well for us because we were able to find one that we fell in love with and we're very, very happy and excited about. So I'm just going to show you guys quick a breakdown of the venue cost and the overall cost for the venues I just talked about. This is going to show you that even though some of the venue costs are lower, it does affect the overall cost, but for some it also doesn't because they have some of those perks included. So it's just a fun little breakdown for you guys. And you know, it's kind of like one of those events that only happens once in your life, so it almost seems like worth it to spend whatever you need to spend, obviously without going too crazy. Like, you can see all of those fit around that average cost budget, and honestly, I'm going to be trying any way that I can to save money, and I'm going to share that with you guys, especially in the next, well, after I announce what our venue is. The next video is going to be about some of those budget hacks and ways to save money. Overall, I hope you can tell that to us the venue price was so important. It took a long time to make our decision, and we really took into account a lot of factors, and honestly, my fiance and I went back and forth on kind of what we wanted to do, but we really just walked out of one of them and said, this is the one. And that was so important to us because just being able to think back someday on, you know, this is the one, and no matter if it's low or high, we're gonna make it happen. And that was just really, really exciting. So anywho, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope this gave you a little bit of a perspective. Again, I want to remind you guys that we are paying for half of this wedding, so if that seems like a lot to you guys, it is. I mean, I'm a teacher, he works at a university, so it's not like we have buku bucks. We honestly are just saving and doing everything we can to make our dreams come true for this wedding. So anyways, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one where I share which venue we chose. Yay! All right, enjoy, guys. Bye.